not taking care of myself and my health as a priority. And that's kind of one bucket. Recovering from the loss of both of my parents the previous couple of years. I was stressed. And then I was also seeing it in my relationships and showing up as not only professionally at work and in my relationships, I saw this version of myself showing up that I really wasn't proud of. The staying put part felt more painful than the leap.
Have you got to the moment in your life where you need to make a big decision? Yes, you're at the moment where you know there needs to be a transition point for you, and it's going to take a lot of courage for you to get there. You're thinking about, how can I make more impact? How can I contribute more? Maybe how can I give back to those people who've been taking care of me up until this point? Well, look, stick around. Today's guest is Shelley Robinson. Shelley and I have known each other a long time, and we go back. So we're going to have a very familiar conversation here for us, but the information you're going to get today is definitely for you. So we're going to talk about Shelley being the composer of her own life. And I recommend you write that down, be the composer of your life. She is a musician. She is a DJ. And she's here to tell us about how she's going to give back to her foundation. She's here to tell us about all those lessons she learned on the inside of corporate America. And now she's on the outside, helping people on the inside go through change and navigate that change. Shelley, welcome. I'm so excited to see you and excited to jump into this. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, James. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Let's hop right in. Let's talk a bit about that transition. This is all about life transitions, career transitions for people. When did you know that you needed a life transition?
I would say it's been brewing for probably 7 years, James. And then I was quietly watching your content on LinkedIn. And as you said earlier, we've known each other for a while. And I was a LinkedIn lurker for a really long time, and saw your content, and it kept speaking to me and giving me nudges that I needed to listen and stop pushing it down. So about a year and 3 months ago, I finally reached out to you and said, let's do this. It's past due.
Yeah, we've had an absolute blast doing it, but I want to make sure that everybody knows coaching is a team sport. So the work that Shelley and I have done over the last nearly 18 months, actually, it's gone quite a long time, has really taken some deep integration. We really had to think about what does life look like for us, and where does our career and our work fit into that. So thank you for sharing that. What do you think some of the pain points that you were experiencing back then? So if you go back to the beginning of 2023, what were some of the things that you kind of emotionally, mentally, maybe even physically feeling that you knew you had to kind of spend some time thinking about?
For me, it was early onset of some health issues that were starting to creep into my life: high blood pressure, weight gain, cortisol response. Not taking care of myself and my health as a priority. And that's kind of one bucket. Recovering from the loss of both of my parents the previous couple of years.
Yeah.
I was stressed. And then I was also seeing it in my relationships and showing up as not only professionally at work and in my relationships, I saw this version of myself showing up that I really wasn't proud of. That stressed out, frankly, unhappy version. And I'm like, there's gotta be more. And conversations with my very best friends too, it was kind of this theme around purpose. And I just didn't feel like I had that gut purpose going on in my life.
I remember the last time we met face to face was when we were in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you coming towards me, and I was thinking, she's so full of energy. This is a completely different person, than the one I've been talking to through Zoom calls.
Yeah.
And that's the real part of us. And so it was really good to see that day. And I've seen a lot more of it since.
Yeah.
But hey, look, why don't we deal with grief? You mentioned something there that maybe I don't want to skim over, because I think it's really important. And you have a huge grief story in your life. So if we can, I'd love to delve into that and tell us what, because you lost your mum and your dad in very close proximity to each other. In your life, you also lost a son. And I just think talking about grief openly is important. I don't think it needs to be taboo. I do think that everybody needs to grieve in their own way. But tell us a little bit about your version of events and losing your mum and dad also, in the backdrop of losing Sloan as well.
So my son had a long-term illness from the time he was born. It was a underlying non-hereditary genetic condition. And he was told he wouldn't live to even be 1. He lived to be almost 5. And it was a really long 4.5 years of about 2.5 years in the hospital with him, and ultimately him passing away. And it's been a long time. He died in 1999, but there was always this underlying, and I think you even mentioned it one time in coaching, and it's like, you just seem a little sad. And I think that vein had carried through for a couple decades. And then the wounds opened up again fully with the loss. My dad had an unexpected heart aneurysm. Didn't get to say goodbye. And then my mom ended up with lung cancer right after he passed. And I know this isn't something other people don't deal with either. It is a common human condition, this loss of loved ones, sometimes more unexpected than others. So for me, grief definitely was kind of always in the background.
If anything, my notice is that it's fueling you, as well as it's been the biggest obstacle, maybe the biggest hurdle you faced in your life, and dealing with these three individuals who were your blood and close to you. Is so heartbreaking to hear the story. So I like your bravery and your courage for doing that. We're going to talk about courage a lot today. But yeah, and I lost my mum. We've talked before. I lost my mum in 2009, and there's nothing quite like it. There's no feeling, there's no preparation for that. Even with my grandparents passing away, earlier in life, it didn't prepare me for what happens when you lose your mom, and so for you, I have no idea what you went through. I can only empathize with the story. I think it's so powerful. What do you think? Why don't we talk about this? What were the maybe 2 or 3 lessons that Sloan taught you in his 5 years of life that you still carry with you, as these are positive rays of light only possible by his existence? Tell us about that.
For him, that unconditional love, that was the first time in my life that I had really felt unconditional love. And so that was the key thing. 2, he gave me an opportunity in my 20s to recognize that there was a lot of personal work that needed to happen within myself. That's its own story, but it opened up my mind at the time to say, you need to have courage to work on yourself. And for me at that time, it was actually getting in therapy. And I'm glad I did. I needed it, and I'm thankful. There are a couple of key people. In fact, the first gentleman I worked with actually did my son's funeral. Really powerful person, and frankly, a healthy father figure in a way in my life at the time, but showed me what was possible to work on yourself and work through grief and work through a hard time. And then I'd say 3rd, a deep respect for everybody's human condition. I think going through those things, you recognize and have empathy for others when they show up in ways that sometimes aren't the prettiest or even the healthiest, frankly, to be there for people and just accept them for who they are in their moment of pain. So I think those are the 3 main things that come to my mind with that question.
Yeah, and I think anybody watching this, if you are experiencing any of this, but you're feeling what's happening in this conversation, don't let your mental health be left to you figuring it out. You do owe it to yourself. I don't think mental health is a taboo topic anymore. Certainly not in the United States. It may be in other countries where it kind of gets brushed under the carpet a little bit. Certainly where I came from, it was stiff upper lip, straight back, ignore it, brush it, normalize everything, and just carry the burden of grief and bereavement around with you. And spent most of my life doing it. Yeah, he's just like, what you're holding on to is kind of let go of some of this stuff. But I love that he taught you that unconditional love. And I love that he taught you that, you wouldn't be able to do this alone anyway. So you then go on this path of therapy, which, again, my message to anybody watching, go and get some therapy if you need it, especially if you're going through some of this extremely tough grieving and you feel like you're alone and you're doing it by yourself. I've been through in and out of therapy many, many times. And I think it's an important message. And conveniently, the first time I remember going to therapy was 1999. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
There we go. Yeah. And not because of bereavement, just because of mental state at the time. Yeah, so I think that's really good. And then this kind of journey of personal development you've been on, that kind of led you to me as well, but you did lots of other things in the book. So what kind of leaps have you seen? So if you kind of think back over the last 25 years, where would be the 2 or 3 areas where you went, well, the times when I saw the biggest amount of gains in my life were, and what were they? Share those with us.
So after my son passed away, I would say the first one was discovering house music. At the time, I was really sad, and there was this little place in Cleveland, went to with some friends, and I was just like, what is this? And it just made me feel really good. Took kind of the burden away and gave me a couple of hours of reprieve. And about 6 months of kind of going there on Saturdays, I'm like, I need to learn how to do this. I need to learn how to mix music. And I grew up playing piano and singing in church, and actually leading singing at church services. So it was in my wheelhouse. It was a different wheelhouse for sure. But I went out and bought turntables and a mixer and spent, 4.5 months up in my loft, just like 4 hours a night, tirelessly mixing. And for me at the time, it was this healthy outlet to kind of let out the creative process and kind of let some of the grief in, frankly, and actually start to work through some of it. And I got to play professionally for 5 years out of it as a happy accident.
Yeah.
It gave.
You can name drop. You've told me some of the names, and when you told me a few of them, I was like, "What?" So
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
opened up for who? Name some of the names, because those who are into music.
Paul Oakenfold,
Paul Oakenfold,
Fish, Saeed and Palash. There's, John Double O Fleming, John Digweed. There are several. And then I got to travel with Dustin Diffuse as well, who was on the Perfecto label. So
and you had residencies where you were the kind of resident DJs as well. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was good. It was a fun time at an actually really heavy time in my life. And that fun, I think the lesson at the time was you do need healthy outlets that bring joy, especially if you're going through a really hard time and you're having a hard time processing grief. And for me, that was a really good time, that moment.
Yeah, and I think bringing it up to current day, what we'll do after the show, we'll put your Mixcloud account down below so people can go there and experience it. I know you have a burgeoning YouTube channel, not recently launched, but hundreds of thousands of people are going there to visit and listen to your music, which I think is just wonderful. It's a lovely outlet for you to see validation that this was something that actually you turned your skills to, and you're pretty good. So we'll drop links to that. So everybody, if you're big into house music, trance music, euphoria, whatever it is you like, there's something in there for you, and we'll put the links into the YouTube channel and the Mixcloud, so you can download that and listen to it on your next hike or whatever it is that you're up to. Awesome. You said a key word, and we've kind of been talking a bit about this, is the courage that you've had to carry with you. So let's talk about courage as a topic. I think there's a lot of people who could define courage, but through my coaching practice, what I find is courage doesn't equal confidence, and confidence doesn't always equal courage. So tell us a little bit about your experiences of courage, bravery, and taking the next best step forward.
Yeah, that's actually something you and I've been working on a lot. And I think, frankly, I struggled with it for probably longer than either of us wanted me to kind of work on that courage. I think at least for me, we start to kind of withdraw into ourselves if we're not living with purpose and meaning. And in working in our coaching and getting that clarity around purpose, it requires courage to actually move forward. You can have the want to, you can have the desire, but you actually have to start doing really uncomfortable things. And for me, it's that beginner's mindset. And making the decision to depart my corporate job took a lot of courage. That was, I think, for me, probably an 8-month decision working with you. It was really hard to leave that security. And there were a whole lot of reasons why not to have the courage and stay. So that was one. And then the second one in working and having courage was actually to start to learn music production, which I'd always wanted to do, and had the courage to actually hire a music production coach and start to have that beginner's mindset as well. Wake up every day, you know nothing, you don't know what you're doing, but you're gonna take step A today and step B tomorrow, and you're gonna keep being uncomfortable and moving forward. And through that courage, I've actually gained confidence, learned to deal with, I think, discomfort, self-esteem issues have come up to work on in that courage and that discomfort. But it's been really, really good for me. And I would say third is starting to work on my LinkedIn presence with your insistence. And I think I was pretty resistant for a while as well, but I have just had the best experience and have met so many incredible people just by participating and starting to contribute and have the courage to have a voice on LinkedIn. So that's what comes to mind for me on courage.
We want people to get the personal messages in this, and we could talk professionally about some of the successes that are happening because of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, what I believe is everybody has a story, and it's important that you share that story. And I like that these outlets you've got with the music, you're able to do this in your industry, but you're able to do this personally. by telling more and more people personal stories about what it's like to go through the. I see your content talking about grief and being open about that, sharing some real deep personal trauma and
Yeah.
putting it out there. And I just think, I'm not a big fan of the word authenticity, but it's everywhere. But I like vulnerability. And I think that's what your strength is, Shelley. So I love that you're vulnerable. And that vulnerability is your demonstration of your courage, that you trust that this story needs to be heard. Because, you got to impact somebody every day. And I think you do that. We can see that by statistics and the analytics that we can take a look at and see how many people care. And then the phone rings. So we know that it works, and we know that it's an powerful way for you to move forward. So let's talk about that decision, because you started bringing up there leaving professional life. And I know leaving professional life is not an easy thing to do when we've been working in a particular domain. We may have been doing that for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And then when time comes to make a decision about, is this what's next for me? What am I going to do with the rest of my life? You said it was an 8-month journey. So tell us a little bit about that.
There was the want to start to have a different perspective and voice from my current role. I think that was part of the fuel of having a passion for certain conversations that I think need to be had in my professional industry. And then the comfort and stability of the regular paycheck was definitely high on my angst list. I'm a single mom, and been raising my daughter here in California. Part of that decision as well, and we were talking about transitions, is my daughter just graduated from high school. So the timing for me was like, hey, this is your moment. So I was wrestling with that pro and con list for 8 months, many sleepless nights, frankly, some anxiety and depression on the couch, and then really focusing on a plan with you that I owned. Right? Because I think that's part of working with you as a coach, is you own your process, and just getting to that level. You had said to me once, make the decision fast. And when I would make the decision fast in my mind, it would be like, it's time to go. But then I would you kind of get back into that fear-based decision.
Obedience. I call it obedience. You get back to obedience and nodding your head and saying, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Or when you're tired, right? You get tired, you get overwhelmed, or you get back into the stress mode of the current environment that you're in. So writing helped a lot, music helped a lot, and frankly, taking care of my health, starting to really put that health first back in, actually helped make the decision. It just certain things started to fall into place, frankly. And I started to have some gut feelings too, that all of the timing was aligned, and now was the moment. So
yeah. I don't know I think it's George Carlin that talks about obedient workers. There's a quote by Seth Godin, I think, about we're all trained to be obedient workers. And then the George Carlin joke was about obedient workers are, the people just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork. Yeah. And it's like, that's how I felt. And I think you felt that too. It's like, I want to do more than run the machine and do the paperwork.
Yes.
Because that's impactful in a narrow lane, and it's helping some of the people I could help. But what if I did this on a bigger stage? How many more people could I impact and contribute to? And that was the big thing that we were talking about very early on, is that it becomes difficult to leave the check in the chair. And you did it. I mean, it's been wonderful to work with you and go on the journey with you. So it's been awesome. So 8 months. So remember that, everybody. If you're in that position and you're thinking about what to do about your big decision and your life transition, you do not have to rush. In fact, we went through a process for that. And the number one point is exactly what we've been talking about, is you have to decide what you want first. There's no point making a plan or going through financial numbers or having conversations with everybody who care to listen, or thinking about how you're going to execute and when you're going to write your book or whatever it is you're going to do. It just, for me, the decision point is the starting point, and then figure out your timeline. And I think once we've got that flip for you, that was when I started to see more change. And I started to see something that you said, what I'm hearing in some of your messages is what I want to ask you about next. You were giving plenty of your energy, your sweat equity, you're giving to the organization, helping the company you work for, and helping those clients win and prosper. But the one thing that we've talked about a lot, and we said in the beginning, is you wanted to give more. You wanted to do more than that. Okay, that's great, but I want to do more. So tell us about, what does giving more look like for you now? So what are you doing that allows you to do that? I
would say first and foremost, I've had this mission for years that I kind of put and buried, was to give back to the place where my son lived the last 18 months of his life, the Hattie Larlam Foundation. I'm not there yet, but that's like one part of my mission is to give more to that organization. It's a wonderful place. And on that note, in my work, are conversations. I'm from the multifamily and Proptech space, and there are conversations that I think are really critical that we start to have. And I can have those conversations now and give back. And part of that is around performance and success planning and the talent shortage that's going on in multifamily, and the insights into vendors and ownership and property management companies that now I can tie all together and actually have those conversations really openly. And it's amazing. People want to talk about it, and people want to solve problems and actually move the industry forward. And I'm finding a lot of allies out there that are aligned. And so it's been really nice to actually speak and then see where it resonates out there openly.
Yeah, you've made some pretty impressive connections with CEOs of some fast moving organizations. So I'm super excited about that. What about outside of your professional realm? Tell us a little bit about what is this courageous move going to be, but giving more? Where are you going to give more? So you talked about giving back to your son's care. You talked about the multifamily industry. Where else? Tell us what else. I mean, we've got music, of course, but where else?
Yep. So I'd say relationships, being present. My daughter's already noticed a change, and that to me that means the world to me to see unprompted that she sees a difference, to give more, to spend more time with her. She and I just took a 2-week road trip cross country up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And it was such a great opportunity. And then I have a record coming out in September. And then I'm working on finishing 2 first truly solo songs to work on getting those released, hopefully by the beginning of the year, to give back. And then I also started a podcast for house music producers, where I have conversations with them and talk about their journey and give back to the community. I'm seasoned now in house music, and there's a whole other generation coming up. So sharing insights and best practices and having really deep conversations with people who are generally not speaking. They're generally behind their music, giving them a voice. I've got a couple episodes, and that'll be in that YouTube channel link as well. So those are different ways that I'm working to give more, and honestly have a multifaceted person, being the multifaceted person that we all are, living that multifacetedness, and being more balanced, where that was missing before. So that's all part of it for me.
I've shared with you, and people listening may know because I share this a lot. You don't find your passion. You just start doing stuff you like, and your passion shows up. I can see that when you start talking. I can see your face light up a little bit there when you were talking. And it's so good. So I want to ask you this, because another thing that people don't realize that you gain from this, you mentioned Stella, your daughter, and you did this trip. And how many hours on a week do you reckon you now get to spend with her that you didn't before?
Oh, wow. Probably at least an extra 6 to 8. She and I have a mother-daughter date every
Yeah.
it's a lot. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but she's also she's living with me still while she goes to college her first 2 years. So I get to see her often, but we actually try to do something together, truly plan it and do something.
Yeah. I want to cement that in, that number, how big that is.
It's a day.
8 hours a week is one day, effectively one work day. And so if there's 52 weeks, how much time you need to give back to your daughter? Is this a special time as she's getting older, studies, and you're available to her and spend time together, do the traveling together? I just think this is such a wonderful thing that people don't realize. You can still forge your purpose, still forge your meaning, still forge your career, and gain all the time back that you want. And I think you're setting an example there. I did the same thing. Is like, how can I move from 80-hour weeks to 30, 40-hour weeks, 30, 40 hours a week? Most people may think that they work 30 to 40 hours, but they're actually engaged a lot more, even though they're not productive, because you're only productive maybe 1 in 3 hours maximum. The non-productive hours are just being given away, which is actually diluting your value. Think about that salary you earn. That salary pays you probably for a 40-hour week, but are you doing 80 hours? You halved your value, So I love that's such a powerful number. 52 work days. Okay, let's carve that up. 2.5 more months in work days.
Yeah.
Daughter, 2.5 months. Now multiply that by years. It's crazy. You've just given her, in the next 10 or 20 years, 1 or 2 more years together.
It's a huge impact. And The secondary, and I think even more important benefits too, is she notices a happier mom, and I'm setting a different example for her so she can have a vision for her life. And to me, that's way more even important than, my own journey is to give her hope and possibility. And she's talking about becoming an entrepreneur and having that courage right out of the gate. And to me, that is just a great unintended benefit that has come out of this for her.
We were focusing on spending more time together, but not in the sense of her coming back to you and saying, it's without expectation. We want to spend more time without expectation. But now she's saying it's like living with a different person, and the best version of you. And I think that's really powerful. So if you're watching, you want to become the best version of you for your kids. So they tell you, I always think success is when your kids want to hang out with you when you're older.
Oh, so true.
And that's awesome, right? So cool. Let's talk about some of the difficulties, because this has not been it's not been an easy passage. Tell us a little bit about the challenges then of the difficulty of walking away, the difficulty of trying to figure out what am I going to do exactly? Tell us a little bit about that.
We kind of talked about that angst that I had in the days on the couch. I would say old habits die hard, and working on your ego, working on what's really driving you and your fears, having the courage to do that. Writing. I avoided writing, I think, for 3 or 4 months when I first started working on the decision. And then there was another difficulty. You were challenging me to wake up every morning and have a gratitude exercise. And I don't know why, but I got on my phone every morning for a couple of months, avoiding that gratitude exercise. I don't even know why was that difficult? But the moment I started to do it, it really started to transform my day. Mindset difficulties, emotional resilience difficulties. I think that's been the transparent item to work on for me through this is, girl, you need to become more emotionally resilient. You let these things affect you way more than it should, especially while I was trying to make the decision at work. I kind of look back at some of the ways I showed up at work, and that was difficult. I was not proud of how I was showing up in the middle of that decision process. So all of those things were difficult. And then I think it turns to, how are you coping, right? Are you even having difficulty getting into healthy coping? And there was even some false starts and stops on even taking care of my health and healthy coping ways. So those all ring a bell, James. That ego and that fear is strong in all of us, and it's something I have to work on.
Yeah, and for me, it's not been never ending. I've been in the emotional mess too. It's a continual investment to understand our own emotional control and our regulation.
Yes.
To what are we reacting to? What are we overthinking?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's forcing us to the fridge to
put
things in, or worse, maybe we're over drinking something we shouldn't be putting inside of us, or we're doing other things, pharmaceutical drugs, recreational drugs, other things, And I'm not saying that you and I did that, but I'm talking to people watching, where are you? Where are you? Are you taking control of this before it takes control of you? Yeah. All right. You mentioned the couch. Let's talk about the couch, because that's been a big part of our conversations. And some people get confused that the couch is a place to be lazy, but it's not. So I'd love to hear about your time on the couch. Tell us about that.
I have a difficult time giving myself permission to have downtime, but the downtime was happening anyway. And that downtime on the couch was filled, instead of recovery, filled with me beating myself up, which is its own difficulty and its own set of ego issues with that. And giving yourself permission to let go of the performance need and give yourself permission to recover. And then I think you said it best, just don't stay too long. It can turn into a depression. It can turn into 5 days of gluttony. It's 24 hours. You set a timer on it, and then you get going again. And I've got one planned this weekend, over the holiday weekend. I need one. So still struggle with it. I can't say it's perfect at all. I'm somebody who feels like she always has to be doing something. You don't always have to be doing something. Sometimes my best ideas have popped up from doing absolutely nothing. So
Yeah, that's right. I've posted about, there are mechanisms in the other side of the world of, yeah, do nothing and you'll
Mhm.
get more done.
Yes.
You'll be surprised. But yeah, I liked how you've transitioned from, it was kind of recovery and exhaustion, the mental overload. And now it's a place of reflection and you can schedule it and feel comfortable. And, now you've said it. I was saying, I had a call with my coach today. After I finish with my coach, I got to sit down and
Yes.
reflect. And I know in neuroscience, when you're learning, the I can't even say the word, acetylcholine is flowing in your brain, but nothing happens until you pause. So the brain can process the information.
Mhm.
And these reflection sessions on the sofa, the psychiatrist has a sofa, are really
Yes.
good for reflection and assimilating all the information and putting it in the right order for you. That's so good. What's next for you? Why don't we transition to that? So people, we've just told the story of going right back to the 90s, all the things that have happened since then. There was a big decision, there's a life transition. Tell us a little bit about what transitions do you see ahead of yourself now, even if we haven't planned them yet, but you can kind of see things blossoming. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
So having the freedom to take that break this summer and giving myself permission, I'm now in that phase of like, what can be? What is the plan? What does it look like? And coming up with a strategy around kind of how I'm engaging with my industry, both industries actually, the music industry as well as the Proptech and multifamily industry. I'm starting to focus on podcasts and speaking and talking about what can be. And that goes back to the multifamily topics and themes around the need for performance-based models. I want to contribute to organizations that want to actually do something different in multifamily and prop tech. And there are several of those organizations out there that are starting to think about what needs to evolve in multifamily. A lot of really great voices out there and minds that are working on doing things differently. And I want to be part of that. And same with music. I want to keep, it's as you said, we naturally are drawn to certain things. That is my eustress, passion place, where to let it all hang out. Some days better than others. But to be permission to be creative and then put it out for people to hear and have courage for people to hear it, or even courage to make something that's not very good, right? You have to have that mindset of you give yourself permission to just create, regardless of if it turns out well or not. So working on music, working on multifamily and prop tech, working with key people and players that are working on things that are evolving the industry, and continuing to contribute in both of those areas and spend time with my daughter and my loved ones and hopefully travel more and then continue to give back.
Yeah, I was going to bring up travel and property investment as well. I know we've talked about those two topics. I think everybody would like to invest in another property and travel more.
Yeah.
But your success in these domains is going to allow you that freedom. And so I'm super excited about what's to come for you. Just what you said there, you're a podcast host, a couple of podcasts, YouTube channels, public speaking. You're doing expert practitioner work in private practice now for some of the burgeoning prop tech companies in multifamily. Was that on your mind in a year ago?
Oh my gosh, James, it was when you and I started working together and I started to give myself permission to work on my content and then also start to work on my music. There was this weird natural gravitational pull to certain topics that just naturally came out. It was really strange. And I think this should speak to everyone. If you don't even know what you want to do, because I really didn't know. If you don't know what you want to do, you have to just give yourself permission that it will come. And it did. It's like I found myself up 4 hours at night late working on music. And I found myself up late, like writing down all of these ideas around, property performance models and success plans and hot list focus groups. And it just naturally started to bubble out.
You said a couple of really important things, and maybe I get you to talk about this rather than me. The first one I think you're talking about is just start. So what messages there about what have you learned about starting something? And then what happens when you do reps? So tell us a little bit about your experience of starting and doing reps.
Starting is hard if you don't trust yourself. And I definitely have had to work on trusting myself. And I'm sure this resonates with many. You will start to trust yourself through the process of starting. So it's kind of like that first time you jump off of a diving board, right? And it starts to get easier. You have to do it the first time. You have to power through the fear and recognize you don't trust yourself, but that you're going to start to have courage to work through those things. The staying put part felt more painful than the leap.
That is so good. I think that's, people will hear that on other podcasts and you'll hear that from your favorite influencers. But yeah, staying put, there is a tax to that. Personally, it's a mental tax, it's an emotional tax, it's a financial tax. And if you think about what you're trying to accomplish, maybe for your kids, you're taking money off them too, or taking life off them too by staying stuck, staying in that put. It's quite a painful place to be. So that's awesome. The other bit you talked about there, which I really enjoy, is listening to you talk about getting in flow state.
Yes.
And hours of, I say this, forgetting to pee, forgetting to eat. Tell us about flow state for you, and how do you go into flow state and what's going on when you're there?
I call it accidental fasting. It's like unplanned fasting happens with me. Music and multifamily right now, it's easy for me to get lost, where before I made the decision and I was showing up to work every day, the day felt long, really long. It felt doctor's office, weight room long. And now I'll look at the clock and it's, 6 p.m. and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got so much more to do, but I'm excited to do it. And the list is longer than it's ever been, but I'm happy to have the list. The flow state for me is always a sign that I'm doing something that is deeply connected to my core. And it's a signal if you're not feeling that, even though difficult. And I know and you may have to grieve, is that you have to face that there's discomfort and unhappiness there and you're not in your flow state. And do you envision your life this way? Are you going to hit the end of your life and be like, I'm proud of staying put? Or are you going to be glad you actually had the courage to try to do something different? And ultimately, even if it wasn't successful for me or nobody listened to a single mix I made, I don't care anymore. It's not for that. It's because I love it.
Everything connects to me because I feel like that. I was forcing my days.
Yes.
And I remember before hiring my first coach to handle my emotional regulation, is that, I just felt like I was forcing everything. And I had good relationships. I liked the people I work with, and not every day was bad, but still felt like underneath it all, I'm forcing this. It's not aligned to my core value. I don't agree with this mission. I'm not really aligned to this vision either. What am I doing here? And so I don't think, by the way, what Shelly and I are telling you today is that you should leave your job. I really don't think that's what you should do. In fact, most people we know stay in their jobs and flourish when they change the mindset architecture.
Absolutely.
It's more about that. And, what are you doing in your daily activity and task? Yes, so good. I wanted to find out a little bit more about what might you be thinking about in 10 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years from today?
I want to be healthy, happy, showing up for my daughter and her family, my loved ones, my really good friends that are lifelong friends, having more time to spend with them. I would love to continue working for the rest of my life, music, mission, and multifamily and Proptech. Hopefully at that point, I can help develop and encourage others newer in their career and journey. I think, bringing this industry forward, it's all of our obligation as current Gen Xers in the industries that we serve to serve it forward, give back, provide value, mentor, help others, be successful in their career and their mission. So I don't see myself ever really quitting, really, James. I think it'll continue to evolve, whether that's strategic engagements or workshops or speaking. I would really like to continue to provide value and serve organizations and others in the industry.
Yeah. No, you mentioned that word quitting. I talked about a concept of quit the wrong things early in 2019 and 20, and I talked about it a lot. I still talk about it. Yeah, as you evolve, you'll quit all the wrong things.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as quitting too soon, even though you're scared.
Totally.
Because quitting too soon usually comes with a lot of excitement as well, because you feel free. And when you're free, you can be back in that flow state. But I do want to tip my hat. I'm not paid for this. There's a book out there right now. It was written in 2023. It was probably written before, but it was released in 2023. It's called Quit. And it's by a lady called Annie Duke. And so if you're watching this and you're having a hard time connect to us two, but you want to connect to something around this, she's written a whole book on this concept. of quitting's important, to quit that wrong thing early and to quit things sooner than you think. Because if you quit at what you think is the right time, it was too late. You probably should have gone earlier. And that's our story.
Isn't
And we were ready to go earlier, but we were still there longer.
Oh my gosh.
That's good. All right, let's transition to you a little bit. I want people to know who you are. So who do you admire? Who is it that you look up to in either in the multifamily space or in the music space, or just if you are following an influencer, who do you love the work of?
Right now, I would say there's a woman named Jennifer Koster, who's the head of people at Live Communities, and I've really enjoyed. I met her through LinkedIn, and she actually lives in my tiny hometown in Michigan. Like, what a small world! But she's doing really powerful things in the industry with people, with talent. They're really doing things differently from my purview, and she gets celebrated a lot. But she's very selfless, so I really look up to that selflessness is something I think we all continue to work on. In music, there's way too many to name. I am just enthralled with the talent that is out there now, especially in my music genre. My music coach, Jason, he is a patient saint. Jason, you're a saint. So patient and shows up with vulnerability all the time. And we've talked a lot about, the obstacle is the way and really working on the courage, again, that courage that we talk about. And then, of course, James, I've really come to respect you and the way that you consistently have challenged me, showed up in my life, challenged me to work through the angst and to work through the grief. And, I highly respect you.
All right. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. I take that. I'm very grateful for you being in my life because it's helped me become a better coach and help people beyond you. So as you came as a client, when more clients came, I was able to service them at a much higher level. That comes down to you. So thank you very much for being you. And now you've just triggered something in me. I want to tell you about you. Because I'm going to ask you more questions about you, but I want to tell you about you. And, the thing that I like the most is when we did the work on values and we really dug in and what most people think that their value is, I'm loving, I'm caring, I'm kind. That's not actually the predominant value for most people, even though at our core, we are all love and we want to be loved and we want to give love and we want more of those things. The work we did uncovered the amount of advocacy you do and how you are an advocate for your teams, for your peer groups, for your people, for your communities, for your music buddies, your producers, your coach. And now you said to me, this is who you are. And I want people to hear me say that. You're a fantastic encourager. You're a deep analyst, a really deep thinker. And I think that's an incredibly powerful thing to have. I know we joked about the couch and talked about it earlier, how it was a place to go, it's creasing my cortex, I can't keep up. But you're a really good advocate, a really good encourager. And I think I find that motivating. And I think a lot of people who come into your sphere will find that motivating too. Let's talk about Stella for a minute, your daughter. She's studying right now. Tell us a little bit, if we were interviewing Stella and you weren't here and we asked her about you, what would she say?
Probably be filled with some cuss words in a positive way. That girl, she's so funny. Boy, I would say she would say that I've been a good example to her. And that the other day she said that she's really noticed a transformation in how I show up. And then she would say, we always work through hard things together. And that to me, just especially the way I grew up with kind of those different dynamics. And I think a lot of people do is you have that conflict. It just happens. Every relationship has things that come up. It's just part of being human. We're all different, but we always work through things. We don't walk away. We stick to it. And I have to just say, what an amazing young woman she is, that she already can do that and has she's actually healthier than I am many times. It's just, when I look at her, I'm just like, why are you so wise? You're 18. She's a special young lady. Go get her.
Make sure you do hug yourself because you are responsible for some of that.
She's awesome.
Tell us, let's finish on this. What would be your ignoring the things you do? So you do music, you do multifamily, you've got family, obviously you're hanging out with Stella, you're out there in California. What would be your day-to-day secrets for somebody watching this, listening to this composer of your life theme that we've been talking about, life transitions, career transitions, making big decisions, being courageous? But what's underneath all of that? What are your three secret day-to-day activities that you do that empower you to take on life in that way?
I start out with gratitude every day. That to me has actually been foundational in improving my.
Tell us about that. How do you do that? People were like, "What's that?" Because I had a really hard time saying thank you for things before. But what do you do? Yeah.
I leave the phone on the nightstand after I turn the alarm off. If the alarm goes off, I'm one of those people who wakes up pretty early, and I just lay there in bed with my eyes closed and do some breathing and think about what I'm grateful for. Truly, and the list is always long. And I think that was the biggest recognition of the exercise is even if things are difficult, I still have a lot to be thankful for, and that just really sets the day up well for me.
Gratitude. What else do you do? A couple of others that we can share with people before we close this out.
Big one for me is a daily reset. I am someone who runs high naturally with some anxiety. I know a lot of people can resonate with that. For me, it is a 3 o'clock in the afternoon meditation that sometimes turns into a nap. And I always leave that session with relaxation, being present and refocused for part 2 of the day. And then number 3 is to make sure I schedule in my fitness.
Yeah, if you don't have your health, where are you going? Right. Yeah.
That is, and I'm.
What does your program look like? I know about the hiking. What else are you doing right now? Because I know that hiking's a big part of that, but what else are you up to?
To me, it's really getting back to mobility. I had gotten really stiff. And everything I'm seeing now is related to that mobility need in later life, picking up your grandkids, going on walks. So really focusing on, I do at-home yoga moves that really work on flexibility for me. And then recently it's getting back into lifting weights, which I used to do for years and I've missed it. Still not all the way there yet, but first things first.
So that's good. Yeah, I think so. Recap. Gratitude, daily reset in the middle of the day. Make sure you're resetting it. That's like, I call that like a check-in with myself. It's around lunchtime, I just check in. Am I being my values? Am I being my best self? Or am I completely distracted and reacting to something and out of where I should be and bring myself? That's cool. And then the physical health thing, I think is awesome. So they're good tips. Yeah, good tips to finish. Well, look, I want to thank you for sharing everything with us today. We're going to put Shelley's information down below. So I'm going to ask you, how would you like people to contact you? Do you want us to put your email in the show notes or do you want them to come to LinkedIn? Where do you want to find you?
LinkedIn's always great. It's been if you're not leveraging LinkedIn yet, please, it is so worth it. It's a long tail thing, but LinkedIn's great, but you can put my email and my cell phone actually in the comments. I'm happy to connect.
I'll check with that offline, but yeah, look, underneath this show, you can go and see right now the LinkedIn connection as well as an email there as well. So if you want to reach out to Shelley, and I recommend you do, for any advisory, then go and do that. But if you need help with music and you need help with multifamily trends, particularly around performance-based management and changing the models in the marketplace, then Shelley is definitely going to be a point for you to go to as the expert practitioner. So yeah, I just want to congratulate you on your composing of your life. I think it's been wonderful to work with you. I know we're still working together. We're doing lots of different things, and I'd like to see how things evolve over the next 12 months. But yeah, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I just want to let you know that if you like this video, then there will be another video that you can go to right now and click in and learn a little bit more about how you can manage your career, how you can think about retirement, or how you can just manage your leadership and think about how you can make a bigger impact in this spot. So I'll see you right there in this video.